When culture is considered as non-essential, we have chosen to put it forward. The number of listeners today shows how important it is and our need for it. Let's open our minds. We got a unique opportunity with the publication of the book of Jeanne Boden and Sanny entitled Mirror. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, let me quote the authors. We shape the world around us in a way we feel comfortable. Cultural practices are internalized preferences. In observing variety, we recognize our own. In interacting, the unknown becomes known. Only by going out of our single context world can we see our own patterns, like looking into a mirror. In seeing the unfamiliar, we encounter the familiar. In mirroring West and East and tracing philosophical roots, we recognize contemporary thoughts and actions, ways of looking at life, at good or bad, efficient or chaotic, right or wrong. Mirror juxtaposes the dualistic worldview of the West with the holistic frame of reference of the East. The word juxtaposes looks to me important. The authors do not use the word confront. This is worth to underline at a time when the tendency is to oppose China and the Western world with a feeling of superiority on the other. When you do not know the other's culture, you mistrust him or her. The better you know, the better you understand the other, but you need also to know yourself better. Why did these two artists, the writer and poet, and the illustrator and painter, connect? As the Renaissance writer Montaigne said of his friendship with the poet La Boétie, because it was him, because it was me. Jeanne Boden has a PhD in Oriental languages and a management degree from Solvay Brussels School of Economics and Management. She is the author of many publications, among which more than 10 books. She founded China Conduct and has advised the management of big companies who are active in China, and many of you know China already, Jeanne, Jeanne, who has been already present to several of our activities as a speaker. Sanny has a master's degree in graphic art and has also published several beautiful books, which are each pieces of art. She's part of the creators duo Boden and Winters. She's working for several magazines and cultural organizations. Jeanne will start by reflecting on universal questions like what is civilization, how do cultures differ, how do corporate culture differ, how do we look at the reality around us, how do we look at life and death, how do we look at ourselves, how do we look at each other. It is only by stepping out of our own context that we can see ourselves. Her presentation will be followed by a video, followed by the speech of Sanny. Sanny Winters will reflect on questions like, how did the book come into being? What was your own process in creating the picture in terms of pictures? How was the cooperation between you? What was surprising for you? What is the message you want to give with this book? And her presentation will also be followed by a video. This all being organized on the occasion of the presentation of this beautiful book. I strongly recommend it to all of you, called Mirror. So, Jeanne, Mrs. Boden, you have the word. We listen carefully to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. De Wit. I would really like to start by thanking you and the Belgian-Chinese Chamber of Commerce for inviting us, for giving us this opportunity. It's always nice to cooperate and to do projects together, so thank you for that. I would also like to thank Sanny for this nice project, but I will come back to that later. And then I would like to thank from the bottom of my heart, my friend Peng Jiayu, who is also joining us today. Peng Jiayu has a PhD in chemistry, but we know each other for a few decades. And we got to know each other when I was translating Chinese literature. And I discovered that she has a very high level of literary Chinese. So I really like working with her. We developed also some corporate branding together for the Chinese market, and it's always really nice to work with her. So, Peng Jiayu, 谢谢你. And then I would also like to thank all the participants. More than 100 people have registered, we will see. But it's really nice to see the whole list of people people from all kinds of walks. And I think this also reflects the connections that China Conduct has built throughout the past decades. We have people from the diplomatic background, company background, artists, and so on, academic people. And that really fits, my world, I would say. So I'm going to introduce, I'm going to say something about myself first, then I will say something about my cooperation with Sanny, then I will say something about the content of the book, and then I will also show a number of pictures from the book and give some, explanation about that. So the people who know me well know that I'm a person of many worlds. I work for companies. Sometimes I give advice to top management people, usually with an NDA. So that is one of my worlds. But throughout my career, I've also worked in the academic world as a lecturer. Currently, the past few years, I'm working for all the doctoral schools from the Flemish universities. And I really, I'm also a researcher in heart and soul. And I think that has also resulted in, partly in this book today, because since I studied sinology, I was also interested in studying cultures and cultural differences. Already at the time, I chose for topics like cultural studies and so on. So this is also one of my aspects throughout my career. And it is in the cooperation with people from China and from other places in the East that I discovered, that a lot of the things that I took for granted, that I should not take them for granted, because the logic that I had in my head was not always the logic that other people also had in their head. So it was really by immersing myself very deeply into this world that I didn't know at the beginning, that I discovered the more I learned about it, the more I can see myself. And this process of awareness raising and about gaining insight in my own patterns in my head, while explaining to other people potential cultural differences, that has really resulted in deep insight. I would also like to say something about my love for the Chinese characters, which was one of the reasons that I started to study Chinese in the beginning. I've been fascinated by the aesthetic value of the aesthetic feel of Chinese characters since I was young. And I still love it. It's like a treasure trove that there's no end to it. And I still love it very much. And that is also why we chose to add Chinese characters, the traditional ones, to the book, because it's so beautiful, and also, there's no end to the beauty, and you always discover new things. Now, about the book, actually, I give a lot of workshops, and in these workshops, I always make drawings to explain to people what is in my head and to make things visual. So I had this idea of making a book about cultural differences and reflections on that. with drawings for many years. And then I discovered the work of Sanny, Sanny Winters. And first, I remember very well that I saw the first book in Brussels, and I was looking at it. And I think a few months later, I was visiting the Museum of Fine Arts in Ghent, and I saw another book by her in the bookshop. And I was just flipping through it, and I thought, I'm going to send her an email. I'm going to contact her, because this was really, the things fell into place. And I contacted Sanny, not knowing what was going to happen, but in my life, I've started many projects that I did in this way. So if you don't go out, nothing happens. But anyway, soon after that, Sanny replied, and we met each other. And from the very beginning, we both believed very much in this project. Now, my cooperation with Sanny, because I contacted her, I didn't know her, so you never know, is it going to work? But I do believe that there is this intuitive, well, if you see someone's work, there you can see, I think if you like it very much, that also says something about yourself and about the other. So I think the work with Sanny from the very beginning, it was really nice, respectful, but I think in a way, the two of us also, I think we are a bit alike in our personalities, very demanding towards ourselves. Yeah, very the aesthetic sensitivity, perfectionists, I think, but also the demanding. This is something that I know about myself from working with other people. And with Sanny, it was never an issue, because she's also so demanding. And I think the work process that we went through was really very balanced and harmonious. We had very intensive interactions, but at no point did we have any real discussion. So we aligned very well. And I think this balance and harmony in our relationships really radiates from the book also. And we call it a book, but I would like to call it a project, because it's a project that we worked on. We started 5 years ago, so it's a project that really matured very much. And well, we started from scratch, so to speak, but well, every time we would discuss a little bit. Sanny did a lot of research herself also, but we had a lot of interactions. And every time she made new drawings, I really thought, this is really spot on. This is what we need. And then through the process, because 5 years ago, the world looked like a different place if you look back. So actually we started this book by China and Europe. And at some point I had the feeling that everything had become political. And so in the process of cooperating, we really decided that we would remove the book from any political influences or political comments, and really bring it to the higher level of poetry and philosophy. And the goal, I think, the goal of this book is really to let people reflect on themselves. I think the concept of mirror is also very nice. Because, well, it's in many ways, this book is a mirror. Sanny and I, in our cooperation, we mirrored. But I also very strongly, I've seen this throughout my life, that it's only really if you step out of your own context that you can look into the mirror. But anyway, the moment we decided to bring it to a more poetic level, we really chose consciously to remove a number of images that we already had created, and to insert influences not only from China and Europe, but also from other cultures. So we brought it to the level of cultural differences. So in the book, and I will explain that with images also, there's also a number of general categories of how cultures differ and possibly differ. So in the end, the book is not about the East and the West. The book is really about potential cultural differences and how we deal with that, and how we look at ourselves and how we look at the other. And I think this is also something that I share with Sanny, a kind of engagement with the world. We do care how people relate. We do care about, well, having an open mind and being engaged with life. And this is certainly something that we also share. Now, the paradox of culture is really that all of us have grown up with certain patterns that we take for granted, but no person can be reduced to a number of patterns. And so it's very enriching, I think, to really engage into other patterns, but you can never just define an essentialist category. And that is also a really nice and interesting idea, I think. Now I'm going to share my screen and show you a few pictures. I hope this works. Okay, I think this is fine. Yeah. So I chose a number of pictures of, well, some of them are really related to cooperating with other people. The first one I chose to show to you is this one. One thing that I've seen very strongly in my work is that some people grow up in a debate culture and other people grow up in a more listening culture. And people who grow up in a debate culture, they usually develop skills of eloquent speaking, but very often they're not very good listeners, and vice versa. Other people grow up really being aware of the position of others. They develop high-level listening skills, observing skills, and I think this is one of the topics where everyone can learn from each other. Then I chose this one, and well, I can speak for an hour about this, but I will try to limit what I say about it. As a subtitle, we gave freedom and responsibility to the left one, and protection and hierarchy to the right one. Now, some people grow up looking at themselves as an individual. You learn to look at yourself as an individual next to other individuals. From a very young age, you can make free choices for what you want in life, but you have to take the full responsibility for these choices. In communication, people who grow up very much in an individual-oriented culture, they will perceive communication as something that is happening between individuals. Other people grow up in more group-oriented and hierarchical contexts, and they, from a young age, they will develop a high awareness of who am I and who is the other, and in communicating, they will always keep in mind the position that people have vis-a-vis each other. And this, I think these two images are one of the core images of the book also. Well, in the West, we really learn to think in black and white. Something is true or false, something is right or wrong. So pretty much black and white. And if you say something that is not true, then you lie. So very much oppositional thinking. And the yin and yang symbol is really something that I think it's one of the most nice symbols on the face of the earth, because things are never black and white. Because at the core of white, there's black, and at the core of black, there is white. And this is certainly an idea that has influenced me and even my children deeply, because things are always relative. And if you go through a difficult period, the germs and the potential of very new chances are also there. And this is an idea that I really love very, very much. And I think, yeah, it's a very nice way of looking at the world around us. Then these two images, this is also really from my work. Some people, this has to do with time concepts also that we grow up with. Some people learn to think about time as a line and to pretend that you can look into the future. And well, if you think that you can look into the future, you also think that you can control time. So some cultures tend to plan everything, make year plannings, business plannings, project plannings. They plan ahead, and then the actions and the time chunks are really divided very neatly. And other cultures, and this image is based on the Chinese saying, you just jump into the water and feel where the stones are, which is a mindset that is reflecting a more flexible approach. And it's, well, you take the opportunities as they arise. And this is also the tension between these two is something that can result in huge frustrations when you work cross-culturally, because on both sides you will have mutual expectations linked to what you have learned yourself. So it's very important to make agreements on this, for instance. Then we have this copyright or the right to copy. This, well, it's a kind, Sanny is very good in putting humor into the book. This is actually not about copyright. I think all the images that we created should be reflected on from a meta level. And this is actually what we want to say with this one, is that if you look on the face of the earth, there are a lot of different legal systems with their own particular things. And we quite often ignore this. And well, even in the academic world, well, writing academic papers, people expect that others know how this should be done and what it all means to reference and all that. But many people don't know that. So this is really a topic that also results in a lot of frustration sometimes. But I think people need to explain what they expect the whole time. These two images are really, well, there's an anthropologist who writes a lot, well, who wrote a lot, he's not among us anymore, but he wrote a lot about how cultures differ in time and space and in communication. And these two images are based on a concept that he uses. So on the left, we see an image of, we only see a face, a portrait actually. And on the right-hand side, we see a woman sitting in a room. And this is also how cultures differ or potentially differ. Some focus very much on the individual, and that is what is important. And in other cultures, the individual will always be perceived as in a context. So the contextual environment is very important. And in this kind of cultures here, the girl sits in an empty room, but very often there will be other people around the individual to contextualize. Then I also chose to discuss this one because this is about how do we select a partner in life. And well, again, we need to look at these images from a meta reflection. So you select a partner. Here we have 3 men and 1 female, and you could interpret this as the imbalance that exists in some areas between men and women because of the preferences for male children, but and this exists in many places on the earth. But research has shown that in some cultures who live in very remote places, that one woman can have different husbands. And this is a concept that few people know. And this is usually in very far out places where the woman with the children needs to be protected, and usually the different husbands, they are brothers. But this also exists. So there's a lot of things that exist in the world that we don't know of, and we tend to, to judge each other without actually knowing. And then my final one is this one, and it's actually, well, we are used to looking at the outside of what cultures do and then attach meaning to it. But I think in the way people eat, you can learn a lot from how they behave in general. In the West, we have, well, we do almost everything. People who plan very well tend to do everything in a sequential way. And this is also reflected in the way we eat. We have the starter, the soup, the main course, dessert, and so on. So eating is a sequential pattern, while in many group-oriented cultures, all the dishes will come onto the table together and will be shared. And if you are invited in a place where all the dishes are together on the table, the chance is very high that a meeting in such a culture will not have a very patterned, a very sequential pattern, but it will also have another dynamic. So this is also an example of how what you can learn by observing. I always, throughout my life, I always observe what people do and try to find meaning in what I see. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing now, and I give the floor to Sanny, I think. I think Sanny will now share a video.
Jeanne, will you mute your...
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Can you all hear me? Yes. Okay. Thank you, Jeanne and Mr. De Wit, for introducing me so nicely. I don't have to do that anymore now. Probably I will say some things that Jeanne has already told you, but it will be from my point of view. So since we're talking in the mirror, that's no problem, I guess. I would like to say some things about some questions that arise while making this project. Jeanne contacted me about 5 years ago, and she had seen my previous books, Belgium Extra Bold and Ghent Extra Bold. She loved the way I visualized abstract ideas and themes with clear images and colors. And in these books, I also searched for the identity of people. So like the Belgian, who is he, what does he stand for, or the Ghent residents and their characteristics. So she told me she would like to work with me on a book about cultural differences. And I was immediately intrigued. So we met at her place. I remember very, very well. We began working together very intense from that moment. Because not really knowing each other, not knowing exactly where it would take us or how long it was going to take. It took a bit longer than we thought, I guess. And that was very exciting for the both of us. I would like also to talk a bit about some images. We decided to make the book in which the visual would play an important role to highlight different themes. And the inspiration for that came from many directions, different directions. As Jeanne said during her workshops and her lectures, she often uses little schematic drawings for her own, of her own to clarify some things. And some of these sketches inspired me as well to make images. This image, for instance, is a good example of how Jeanne's little drawings, doodles, also worked very inspiring. The pyramids drawing she often uses and that returns while she explains things is something I tried to take to another level in this drawing. I must say that I have always as well been fascinated with people, different backgrounds, and how people respond to things differently. But I was not really familiar with the Asian worlds in particular. I must be honest in that. So the first thing I realized was that I had to educate myself a bit on the theme. And that meant a lot of research, reading a lot, and talking a lot with Jeanne to understand things. And fortunately, she is a passionate storyteller, so thank you for that. I discovered that Asian aesthetics lay closer to my way of working than I first imagined. For instance, the color red is something that became an integral part of the book. And I must say also in our graphic design work and also in my work as a free artist, I often use red because we're convinced that red element in a picture or in an image always draws attention very directly to an image. Something else that inspired me a lot as well in my free work as in my work as a graphic designer. We're well known as people that work a lot with typography. I have a great love for that. So you can imagine my enthusiasm for the Asian writing and characters, something you can see in this image as well. On the left side, we took the image counting by drawing dashes. In the West, we count by drawing dashes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that inspired me to place a Chinese character on the right side. We discussed about it and it became Chinese character for correct, also a term used while counting. So, in this image, for instance, you have the character on the right side, the Chinese character for, correct me if I'm wrong, Jeanne, for double happiness, a symbol that is often used with marriages in the Asian cultures. I combined it on the left side with an image of a couple, a young couple in love, or an older couple, a couple in love. So that works also very nicely. Something that was very challenging for me, because I always work with typefaces and typography, was to make images that were very pure, as pure as possible, stripped of everything unnecessary, so that the attention was going to the message and the message only. Therefore, I also needed to create a figure that was away from cliché images, and a figure that could serve both worlds, as well the Western world as the Asian worlds. Something you can see in this image as well. Of course, I had to empathize with the Oriental mindsets. Therefore, an image that Jeanne also already showed, this image that was one of the first, actually. It seems a simple comparison, but for me, it was a real eye-opener. It all fell to place when I realized the base of the two cultures or worlds, the Asian world and the Western world, the dualism and the holism. It was a very, it was an eye-opener for me. And I also like the way Jeanne and Feng Xiaoyu put the text beneath it. I like it when these small words, the words, the or and the ends. At the left, you have the black or white. At the right, black and white. It's a very small world, but it's a very big difference. Jeanne and I, we sensed each other very well, I guess, and we decided that it was important to have equal respect for both the worlds. And the last thing we wanted to do is to pass judgments on one or the other worlds. And that is when we decided to place the two worlds as a kind of a mirror image to each other, as you can see here. I wanted to create the images as similar as possible, despite every existing difference between them, almost like really looking into a mirror. And we even pushed it a bit further by doing the same with the text beneath the images. As I said before, as well here, mind or heart, or mind and hearts. It's a very small world, but a very big difference. And I thought Jeanne and Feng Xiaoyu did that very successfully. Jeanne and I, we also have very different backgrounds ourselves, I guess. She has a PhD in Oriental languages and cultures. I have a master's degree in visual arts. I'm from Antwerp, she's from Jeanne, so that's also something else, but we clicked very well. We had a nice match. And despite these differences, she treated me equally from the start, what was very nice. And we had mutual respect for one another. We spoke freely to each other, and we were open for improvements of images and text the whole time. And we pushed each other to the limits. So in a way, you could say we also made a book about ourselves, looking into each other's mirror. It took us a while to get to the final phase of the book. And in all this time, the shape of the book has evolved a lot. First, there was the idea of making the book as a kind of a tête bêche. A tête bêche, that means that the one side of the book would be for the East and the other side of the book would be for the West. But then we realized that this way the both worlds would be equally represented but torn apart from each other. So we needed to change that to a more holistic concept. So we came to the mirror concept. And then, of course, oh, I forgot to say also the photo, the binding of the book is inspired to the Asian way of binding. And that's also important because like that, the book opens very nicely and it makes the mirror effects between the pages a lot more stronger. So, and then finally, it took us a while to get there, but we're convinced that the time we took was needed and made the result even better. For me, the book is more than a comparison between both worlds. I have the hope it can bring people closer together in general, and that it can teach us how to look beyond differences between us, between men, women, or between different colors and genders, between like-minded people and opposites. And like Jeanne puts it very nicely, in one sentence, only by recognizing the difference can we see ourselves. That sentence alone for me was a true inspiration while during the whole process of the book. Mm-hmm. I would like to thank you all for listening. And Jeanne, also, I would like to thank you a lot for this opportunity. It was a nice roller coaster for the both of us. So many thanks for that. So I give the words to, I guess, Mr. Bernard de Witt, maybe. I think so.
Thank you, Mrs. Winters. Thank you, Sanny. And I must say that for me, what you did is really beautiful. And your illustrations makes us understand so well the cultural differences that Jeanne helped us to understand. but with your visual illustrations, it is extraordinary. And I must say, for someone who had no special interest in Asia when you started the work, well, I think you know Asia much better than many of China hands, if I may say so, in the Western world. So really, congratulations. I would say that we have now a possibility for our audience to make some remarks or ask some questions through the chat, and don't hesitate to make use of it. I had a first question for Jeanne. When you were speaking of planning and pragmatism with the illustration of Sanny, but how would you then interpret, for instance, in the case of China, where you have certainly the pragmatism, but you have also the 5-year plans in the economy, where it is well planified. And so how would you put that in your appreciation?
Thank you for the question. Well, what is called the 5-year plan is actually not a detailed step-by-step planning. The 5-year plan introduces big goals that the Chinese government wants to reach. And how these goals are reached is not necessarily prescribed. So they set goals, and companies who go along, they will be supported. And that is how China works very much, I think. But the word plan is actually a little bit misleading. It would be a better word would be a 5-year goal, I think, which is something completely different than a day-to-day, well, planned agenda and executing what you have planned. Because I think many people in China are a lot more flexible in the way they cooperate. And it results in different corporate cultures also, because leadership is also different. While here you have a project, and all the stakeholders or all the people involved in the project will keep the planning and the deadline in mind. Why I think in the Chinese context, it's much more, and not only China, but many places in Asia, the centralized cultures, you could say, the leader will have a big role. They will make the decisions, and if you look at it at a pyramid, the basis will execute, which is a totally different dynamic than just a step-by-step planning. Is that a reply to your question? Yeah.
Thank you, Jeanne. I was sure you would have the right words to reply to it. I also noted in your speech that you were speaking with the example of civilizations where of polyandry, where a woman can have several husbands. Well, you have also the other way around. In some other civilization, you have men having several wives. So would you oppose these two civilizations?
That is not an easy question to answer. First of all, I'm not a specialist in this, and it's difficult for me to say something really interesting about it, because I observe these patterns, but I've not done research myself. Actually, one of my very good friends who is a professor in anthropology, she did the research, but she's not here to reply to you. I don't know if it's as simple as opposing. I think the reality we live in is much more complex, and the reasons of why one woman would have different husbands and one man different wives, I think the reasons behind may differ very much. So I think the word opposing is always a bad word when we speak about cultural complexity.
Thank you, Jeanne. We have a question here to you. Do you think language or language acquisition have played a role in the difference between the culture? And in that case, how?
Yes, well, a lot of research has been done on that. And it's very interesting. You find TED Talks also on people that are specialized in that. So people have been doing research more than 100 years of how the language or languages that we grow up with influence the way we look at reality. And there are, well, for instance, there is a group in Australia, and this group does not use any words in their language like above or under or left or right. They address everything by north, south, east, west. And these people, they develop a very, very high level of orientation that other cultures don't have. So certainly, language has a lot of influence on our brain and yeah, on how we look at the reality around us, certainly, yeah.
Jeanne and Sanny, we have a practical question. How can people, where they can find the book, how they could buy the book? Maybe you could give us some indications?
Yes, you can find the book in some bookstores. I have a small list. It's not everywhere that you can buy it, but you can buy it as well via our website. I will show you the link if that's possible. Can I share my screen, or is that difficult? Okay.
Yes, you can. Yes, sure.
Okay. Voila. It's a bit complex, the link, but that's where you can find much more information about the two of us, and that's where also is an order form, and you can order if you want to.
But I think the Belgian-Chinese Chamber of Commerce will also send out a thank you mail with a link towards the book, so people can just order it from there too.
Yes. Yeah.
Definitely, you can be sure of that. We had also a question of several of our listeners asking if they could get the PPT. I leave it up to the authors to answer to that. Jeanne or Sanny, is there a possibility or not?
Well, the PPT is actually part of the book.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I don't think it's a good idea to share. We will put this recording online for sure, so people can watch it. But, well, I think sharing the PDF would really reduce our project to a PDF, and I don't think we want to do that. Because, yeah, the book is the result of many years, and it's not only just the book, the paper that Sanny chose, and the print, the level of the print. It's we don't really want to reduce it to a PDF. So, but well, I think this presentation is recorded, so people can always watch that, and
sure,
we would like to look back.
Yeah, and I must say that our listeners have the possibility to contact the chamber, and we will give a link to the record of the speech. You will also, I think you told me you were planning also to have something on YouTube, maybe.
Well,
Jeanne,
we can put this recording on YouTube.
Yes. Okay.
And then we can share the link, and yeah. But we will make sure that all the participants, they have all the information they need. So just ask your questions and we will reply to you. So don't worry about it. You will be able to get it.
Sure.
But well, maybe we look at the questions because the book has just been published and we don't know where people want the book and so on. So, but we don't worry, we will look after that.
Okay, but anyhow, I invite listeners, don't hesitate to send us your comments or your questions, and we will forward it to Jeanne and Sanny, definitely. I had also a practical question from a listener from China. Could people in China buy this book?
Well, we have to look into that, I think, how we're going to practically organize it. Because actually we were, it was very difficult to find a publisher. We were really searching, but no one wants to take risks in these days. So in the end, we published it ourselves. And we have to organize how, well, actually Sanny and her husband published it. But yeah, we have to find, well, we will find ways. If people are interested in the book in China, we will find a way and discuss how we can organize this in practice.
Well, I really hope, because
yeah, it will not be.
Yeah, I really hope that. Yeah.
Yeah, but make sure we will make sure that yeah, it will be available.
Great. Well, I wanted to thank our two speakers today. I noted that one thing, when you started, Jeanne, you were saying that you had love for Chinese characters, and that was a little bit the beginning of your interest in Chinese culture. While Sanny also mentioned her love for typography, and we showed that when you adapted to the Chinese character for double happiness, and with the Western point of view. I noted also that Jeanne detailed the harmonious work process you both had, and the harmony in the relationship. We see that radiate in the book. You also wanted to remove the book from political comments and bring poetry to push people to look inside of themselves, with the book showing finally the open mind of both of you. The illustrations showed the differences between debate culture, listeners culture, freedom and responsibility, and compared to protection and hierarchy. You had the black or white, the black and white, the right to copy, the copyright, and so on. So many examples. And I would say that sometimes also, as we say, the truth is in the middle. We will also find it here when seeing what you write. I must say personally that I'm so happy that we had this today, because it's not often that we can speak about such a piece of art like what you brought. You brought it by your text, you brought it by your beautiful illustrations, and I must say, Sanny, I didn't know about you, but now I'm very happy, I'm very glad, and I hope we will be able also to follow your future realizations. It's really something worthwhile, and I say it for everyone who listens to us. Also, your philosophy of both of you is most respectful, when you have equal respect for both worlds, and with the word of mirror, which gives the image to each other. I would say that we really hope that we will be able to organize in the future maybe some other events with both of you, because the purpose of the chamber is to make a bridge, to be a bridge between, in our case, Belgium and China, but between East and West. I would thank again both of you. I would like to thank our listeners. I would like to thank our sponsors, and especially Flanders Investment and Trade, of which we are a structural partner. And I hope you will join us for our future activities. You will receive mails from us. And if you are willing to have more details about the book, write to us.